Hi everybody, and welcome back to Crafts and Crimes. I'm your host Aubrey, and this is the show where we talk about films based on true crime, the true crime itself, all while making crafts. I don't know about you, but it's only Thursday. Well, I guess technically I'm not wearing a watch. Technically it's Friday while I'm filming this, and it has been a very odd week for me. So I'm done with work tonight, so I'm drinking while we do this, but not enough to not be able to make the crafts or tell you a story. So we're just gonna have some fun today. If this is the first episode you're tuning into, that's odd, but whatever. I am a bartender as well as a crafter, an actor, and somebody with an interest in true crime. So I work very strange hours and I meet very strange people. I also don't like to do my makeup on my days off for the most part. So in an effort to force myself to record, I'm doing this after I got off work, so my makeup's already done. So it is like 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. So excuse my rambling. It's been, like I said, it's been a very weird week. We had, I work at a casino. I used to work at an airport, and now I work at a casino. It's pretty great, but there's some pretty strange things that go on. I had, what was it, Wednesday? I had this couple who I picked up their tab from the bartender who was leaving, and they had like $136 tab. I gave them their check, and then I turned around to make other drinks for servers, and I turned back around and they were gone. So we called security and they were able to find them. They looked at the cameras. Doggo. Excuse me. My puppy is rambunctious. She wants to be part of the videos, but I'm not interested in crafting dog hair at the moment. So anyway, so they called security, they looked at the cameras, and they were able to find where they were, and they were staying at the hotel. I don't know if they had been drinking quite a bit, so I don't know if they had really intended to dine and dash. Who knows? They were drinking, their last shots were 1942, so they were probably like, whoo, let's take those shots and run, but whatever. So they found him. They knocked on their hotel door, and they told him that they hadn't paid their tab. So they came back down finally to pay it, but in that process, because we had to call security, we banned them for 24 hours because they didn't pay their tab originally. So we came down to pay it, paid it in cash, and yeah, it was almost a $200 tab. So we paid in cash, didn't tip, and then decided he needed another shot, which at that point, since they were banned, I couldn't serve them anymore anyway. But if you're not going to tip on a $200 tab, or almost $200 tab, you're definitely not getting another shot. So he left finally. Yesterday, gotta love animals. Hey, yo! Animals! They decide to have zoomies right when I start recording, but what are you gonna do? Yesterday I had a guy order 2 pizzas and calamari and go back to play on the slots, and he ordered drinks for him and his friend, and then he disappeared forever, like 15-20 minutes, came back, drank some soda, left, came back, ate, and then disappeared. And I had a weird feeling too, so I was trying to like stay around him, and then the moment like I had just turned around for a second, he was gone again. And then we tried to find him and we weren't able to find him. But that's not really unusual for people to like come in and come back. And we're in a restaurant, but we're off the casino floor. So people just think it's like adult Chuck E. Cheese, and we're at the parents' table and they can just run in and eat real quick and come back and run in and come back and run in. I'm like, no, you gotta at least leave a card. And usually we do, but he disappeared so many times in between, it was hard to catch him. And why was it weird today? I don't know why it was really weird today. It was just a long day. I've been training somebody this week, which is fine. It's not like a bad, like I'm not training somebody who's terrible. It just, that's exhausting. I have to slow myself down to explain what we're supposed to be doing for somebody, and once I'm in the zone of working, I just have like that tunnel vision, and it's very hard to slow it down. So I'm tired, but this is my fun time. This is the stuff that I love to do, and I love to get to talk about it. So this is my decompression. So even though I'm up very late, I'm having a good time. So what are we doing today? You may ask. You may wonder. We're having adult grape juice. That's what we're doing. No. And I also have my regular drink here too. So don't worry. The craft will be animals. Driving me crazy already. The craft will be contained this. I finally finished it before we get real started. Finally finished it. I'm really excited about it. This is my personal tumbler. I promise I'm not drunk. This is my first glass of wine. I just have trouble speaking sometimes. This is my first tumbler that I made as my not first tumbler that I made, but like first for my business card tumbler, so I can take it to work or wherever, and everything's on it. So my husband's business Serving Creations is on this side, our handles, and then my business and Crafts and Crimes is on here as well, and some of our logos. And then I did the epoxy. And the thing that I really like about my tumblers as well is that I put a rubberized seal on the bottom, so they're non-stick, or not non-stick, they're non-slip. So I know that because the epoxy makes it really soft, and a lot of times even with the bottom part it gets really soft, so it slips. So it's not going anywhere. It is good to go. So I'm really excited about those. And those are available at the store from the Heart Gifts. You can check them out on my Instagram as well. So let's get down to it. Today we are making shower steamers. I call them shower soothers. They're technically not shower soothers because that's a brand name product. I remembered that. The shower steamers, and they're basically like bath bombs, but I'm not really a bath bomb person because I don't like, if you've watched the second episode, I'm not really a bath person. I am a cat, as I will say. When anything comes to water, usually I am a cat. I don't really enjoy it. It's not that I don't know how to swim, it's not my thing. But I like the thought behind it, and especially with the steamers, it releases the essential oil like a nasal decongestant or a relaxation smell like lavender or whatever in the steamer. So it kind of has that aspect. But I mean, I can make bath bombs if you guys want in the future, but I like the steamers. So we're doing that, and then we are talking about John Reginal Christie, a UK serial killer in the 40s and 50s, and the movie that was based on his life, 10 Rillington Place. And we're doing two, or I'm gonna go over, they're not really a lot different, but I just thought I'd do both, talk about both of them a little bit. It's because I didn't know that they had it when I was originally looking for the film, but they made a mini series called Rilligton Place in 2016. So I just thought I would talk about both of those a little bit. They're very similar. The miniseries just goes in a little bit more detail, but they both do a good job of telling the story. One thing different that we are going to do today is I'm going to talk about the case first and then the film, because this is a biopic. The other two that I've done were loosely based on the crimes, so I did the film first and then we talked about the crime. But since the film goes over the crimes, I give you a better idea of the crimes themselves before we talk about the film, because it'll make it a little bit easier. And I just remembered, we're going to pause for a second. I'll be right back. I forgot to get water. Not for myself, but for the craft. So Pause. There we go. You're still here? Good. Awesome. Okay. So like I said, we're doing John Reginal Christie, and 10 Rillington Place and Rillington Place. So let's get started. Get my notes. Alrighty. We're also going to do the steamers, so I'm going to set those up. So my recipe for steamers is we're using organic arrowroot powder instead of citric acid, baking soda, water, essential oil smells, and I'm using a mica powder for color, just so that I know what smells I'm doing. But the brand I am using is Middle Coast, and they are safe for this, so don't worry about that. They're non-toxic, no animal testing, irritant free, and ages for okay for 3 and up. So you don't have to be worried about it while you use it in the shower. I mean, you're not using it as a bath bomb, but you still don't have to worry about that while you use them. So I have different colors. I'm going to split this up between them. Cool. So I originally was using, okay, breathe. We're doing, I've got nesting bowls. So put that over there. I originally got these, or wanted to do it for the breathe or the nasal decongestant, because I have horrible sinus problems whenever the weather changes. It sucks. I get terrible sinus headaches, so I always like anything like menthol and minty flavor or whatever. It's just the stuff that help me breathe. So that's why I originally did it, but then I have other flavors, smells too. So the breathe is for the nasal. We're gonna do sunny mood for our morning people, or people who are not morning people and need to wake up. Good sleep, which is something I should be doing. And our last one is going to be relaxing. So, which are very similar, but you know, stress relief, you need that too. So like, you don't want to go to sleep, but you need to relax. So here we go. You stay there. Alrighty. So, to acknowledge my sources, that's the word, lovely. At the beginning, I used Wikipedia and Murderpedia, of course, a favorite of the Murderinos, just for the good overview of it. And then I also listened to a podcast called Serial Killing, a podcast that they did an episode on it as well, and the True Crime Guys, not to be confused with True Crime Garage, which are great too, but True Crime Guys did an episode that was helpful as well. I don't know why I'm just spooning it in. Thought it would be faster, but it's taking too long. Alright, so early childhood, John Reginal Christie, or as they called him, Reg, or sometimes they would just call him Christie. I know in the films they call him Christie a lot. Was born in 1899 in Northam, near Halifax in West Riding of Yorkshire. If I mispronounce anything, don't come for me. I did spend a semester abroad, but that doesn't mean I'm like fluent in pronunciation. I can barely pronunciation. He was the 6th of 7 kids, but he was like the only boy. He was, yeah, all the rest of them were girls. His father was very cold and distant and a disciplinarian, but you know, for that time period, that's not unusual. It was the turn of the century, so I mean, it wasn't, people weren't on the whole, as overall, they weren't super caring and loving. I mean, I'm sure there were some, but that wasn't what that time period was known for. It was a tough time period to live, so don't have time for that. They didn't really seem to be too extreme about like being like overly beaten. I mean, that nowadays, but anything is, oh, you know, too much. But like they weren't like, he wasn't like his parents weren't the Kempers or anything. They did seem to be apologize. Yeah, they did seem to not, oh my god, where are my words? Pick and choose what they were going to be disciplinarians on, but like I said, it wasn't too over the top for the time period. But they did, his sisters did seem to bully him, and there are thoughts that, or theories that they dressed him up as a girl as well and doted on him, but then they would bully him too. So kind of like there's odd theories on what was going on in that household. But he would get babied and bullied at the same time. So he would get attention. He would do things just to get attention. So that is going to come back to his like psychology later, is that he didn't have the control he wanted in life. Not that it gives him any excuse to do anything like that, but to do any kind of murdering. But that's where it's like his loss of control of being surrounded by women all his life. Oh God, I'm gonna take it out when I get older. Good Lord. But it wasn't a very stable home life. He did seem to get sick a lot, or at least suffer from hypochondria. Although that might have been a reason for him to get attention, because when he did get sick is when he was given the most attention. So it was like, all right, if I get sick, they won't bully me. So that might have been his reason for getting sick all the time and why he developed hypochondria. That he really wasn't sick. That's how he got attention. That's how he stopped the bullying. Ooh, that smells good. And then he also said himself that he developed odd sexual feelings for his sisters as he got older. Like his wires got crossed, and maybe them doting on him or bullying him, it like just made him feel weird. But that's him talking about it later, so he's not a very reliable witness either, so that could be him just talking out of his ass. When he saw his grandfather die at 8, he didn't see him die, but when his grandfather died at 8 years old, when he was 8, and he saw him in the coffin. And when he saw him in the coffin, he realized that even mean people die. And he got kind of a sense of power for that, because he guessed he was even worse than his own dad. And so he's like, wow, so now I have power over people, because everyone's gonna die, kind of thing. So it gave him a little bit of power. I mean, not enough, not really over the females in his life, but it did give him a sense of like, I don't fear death anymore. It made him feel powerful and good because he no longer feared this man because he was dead. So feeling powerful is the feeling he would chase for the rest of his life, because it's the fear, like with females, he didn't have that power. Apparently he was pretty smart. He had an IQ of 128, won a scholarship to the Halifax Secondary School, and was really good at mathematics. But he left school in 1913. So he would have only been 14 or so. Just to get 13, 14 to get enter the workforce as a projection assistant, and he really liked it. But things would get worse as he got older. We don't want to bully people, but in the end, I mean, I guess, I don't know. He's not a very good person, so you feel bad for him at this age, but then once he starts doing things that are bad, you're like, all right, I don't feel bad for you anymore. So in 15 or 16, he went out with a girl for the first time, or at least the first time that it's been recorded. And he really liked this girl, and he really wanted to do the things that teenagers like to do, and especially teenage boys like to do. I mean, not that teenage girls don't like to do them as well, but you know, but they always like to say, oh, boys only have one thing on their mind. Well, he did, but the fact of the matter is he couldn't do the one thing that was on his mind. He suffered at 15 or 16 years old. He discovered that he suffered from ED and couldn't get it up. And instead of the girl being nice about it, which you would hope, she decided to tell everybody about it, and he got the nickname Can't Do It Christie and Reggie No Dick, which those aren't very original names. I mean, goodness, you couldn't think of anything else, but it got to the point, and it did its job of making him feel worse about himself than he already did. So he continued to take that frustration and anger and lack of control with him as he got older. So, since he was a teenager in the early 1900s, he ended up going to war during the First World War. He entered the British Army in 1916. He was called up on April 12th, 1917, and joined the 52nd Northamptonshire and Derbyshire Regiment, and to serve as an infantryman. April 1918, he dispatched to France, and Christie was, let's see if that's the right consistency, just a little bit more. I'm gonna make sure it's like together, but with like not too wet, but just enough that it stays packed when we put it in our little silicone trays. I do the little cute ones, and I have regular ice cube trays, but I thought these were really adorable. Beautiful. And I made this one blue, and it's called, the color's called the ocean, because you breathe well at the ocean. I love going to the beach, but I don't really like getting in the water. There we go. That's nice. Perfect. Okay. Let's mix this just a little bit more. Okay, so he was like I said, in 19, oh yeah, he was in the, was just dispatched to France, where Christie was, second to the Duke of Wellington, sorry, I can't read my own notes, regiment as a signalman, and during the following June, he was sprayed with mustard gas, and spent a month in a military hospital. And then he claimed that the attack left him with the he was blind, it left him without the ability to speak, and he couldn't see for left him blind, and left him mute for 3.5 years. I don't know why that was that difficult to say. So he couldn't see and he couldn't speak. According to the true crime guys, they talked about it, and they said that might have been more psychological than anything, because of his hypochondria as well. They said, I forgot the term that they used, but he was hysterically mute. Like they didn't really have a originally, yes, the gas injured his throat, so it made it harder for him to speak, but after that there really wasn't a medical reason for why he couldn't speak. And he says he couldn't see, but he could have been lying. Like I said, they say by that point, especially 3 years in, it was mostly psychological in a way, maybe to get for people to feel sorry for him, or to get attention like he did when he was a child. Okay. Alright, well, it was probably more likely psychological and hypochondria. And we see this later too, because he would say that most of his life he couldn't speak above a whisper, but during a case where he has to testify, not his own case, but another case, he has no trouble speaking. And when it comes down to his case, when he has to talk, he suddenly has a bout of muteness and has to be told to speak up on the stand. So it kind of comes and goes with his feeling of not having power. But also that's the film. I mean, there is transcripts of him having to speak up, but they do depict it in the film of he can't. There's times where he's not able to speak above a whisper, and it's the voice that they give him, or the actor gives him. It's so good. It's so good because you just hate him. His voice is just so annoying. You're like, please stop talking. Good. I'm glad you can't talk above a whisper. It's so annoying that even when you talk, it's very irritating. It's good. It's a very good movie, and I'm excited to talk about it. But him himself as a person is not good. Ugh. Okay. So, he was demobilized from the army in October 22nd, 1919, and he joined the Royal Air Force in on December 13th, 1923. But he was discharged later not a full year later. It's August 15th, 1924. So he didn't serve a full year. Yes. To do math. But it was the end of, he joined in the beginning of 1923, and he left in late 1924. Nope. Strike that. Reverse it. Late 23 and left in 24. December to August. I don't know why that was difficult to say. Okie dokie. Alright, so now we're getting on to his marriage. He has a very weird relationship that lasts, give me, I'm thirsty. Lasts all of his criminal career, until her death. But they have an odd relationship. So in 1920, he was 21. He meets and pretty quickly marries Ethel Simpson, who was 22 at the time. They were married for 4 years, and he still struggles with impotence. Although he was, I believe, in the military is when he starts sleeping with sex workers, and he has no problem getting it up for sex workers. So it kind of seems like that. I don't like the word for it, but like the Madonna whore complex. Like if anybody out there in the void remembers the Sex and the City episodes with Charlotte, and they have like he can't get it up. He can get it up to masturbate, but he can't get it up with her. And I think it's like an extreme example of that, but and not in a funny way. So even though he was having trouble with impotence, and it was going to sex workers and not struggling with impotence, he's struggling with Ethel. She did get pregnant, but had a miscarriage. He says that she was having an affair. We don't really know whether or not she actually was having an affair or not, or if he was just able to get it up at least one time to get her pregnant. But after the miscarriage, they separate. They're still married, but Jenny, I apologize. Forrest the dog, Jenny the cat have a very Forrest and Jenny relationship. Jenny just does not want to be with Forrest. Forrest just wants to run. No. They love each other. She loves Forrest as long as nobody's watching. Excuse me. Can you go lay down, please? Alright, so she has like I said, she does have a miscarriage, and after 4 years they separate. So it's pretty much from other readings is that after the miscarriage, she pretty much very quickly after the miscarriage, when they separate, she goes to stay with family, and he pretty much loses his shit. Starts with the criminal activity right away. Although he doesn't kill anybody fully until after they get back together. But he does get into some pretty shady shit, and it's weird that it doesn't come back to really haunt him during the first trial. So in 1921, he starts stealing packages from his postal job and receives 3 months of imprisonment. In 1923, he was found guilty of obtaining money under false pretense and violent conduct. They don't really explain what that is. Like, probably lied and then beat somebody and robbed them. They got 12 months probation for it. 1929, he had been working as a lorry driver or truck driver for us in the States for 2 years, and had been living with a known sex worker named Maud Collum. And after living with her for some time, he decided that he didn't like her anymore, or he just needed to get out some rage, and decided to use her for it. And he beat her over the head with a cricket bat. And his defense was that he was practicing his swing, I guess all over the house, and she just got in the way. Because that's normal. I mean, it'd be one thing if you, I don't know, that's a terrible thing to think about, but yeah, no, I don't think so. I do not think that she just accidentally got in the way of you swinging. You don't look behind you. Don't yell "4." I know it's not golf, but there's got to be something. There's got to be something you yell, or at least look behind you. Get some rearview mirrors in your house if you're just going to be swinging a bat around all the time. It's not a small bat either if you've ever seen a cricket bat. They are not small. And they're good for beating people. I mean, that's terrible. But they're flat, I'm pretty sure. Don't come for me. But they're not like a baseball bat, although I know people use those for beating people all the time too, but get some good air behind that. Not that you should. Don't beat people. Don't murder people. But he was found guilty and he was given 6 months hard labor. Just hard labor. Excuse me. Doggo. Tiny bear. Go lay down. Just hard labor. Maybe they were hoping he would die during hard labor and they wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. But, alas, he continued to live for much longer and hurt people for much longer as well. In 1933, he stole a priest's car and was sentenced to 3 months in prison. So 6 months hard labor for attempted murder and 3 months in prison for stealing a car. Cool. And then he was what?
Oh, you're over there. I thought you were sleeping.
Oh no.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I love you.
I love you.
Hi.
She's just.
Are you helping?
Yes, she's helping a lot.
She's the star.
Yes, very much so.
It smells delicious in here.
Good. Anyway, let me collect my thoughts. There we go. So in 1934, I believe it's the end of his sentence is when they reconnect. In his last 3 months before the stealing of the priest car. And I like in the movie where he's like, I don't even belong in here. I guess you do. Go away. So they reunite. They get back together. And I think he moves in with her and the family for a while. We'll get into it, but in the movie, he's already living at 10 Rillington Place. But they actually move into 10 Rillington Place together in 1937. They first move up into the upstairs flat in Notting Hill, and at this time it was not Hugh Grant's Notting Hill. This is not romantic comedy Notting Hill. This is this is 37, so almost World War II, recovering from World War I Notting Hill and getting ready for World War II Notting Hill. So it's not, they're like building tenements and different flats. This place is very small. They share an outdoor bathroom. It's like an outdoor washroom that they share where the laundry, where they wash their clothes. It's not like a washer and like a basin. They share the yard, although if he has anything to do with it, he is not sharing his yard. They share the washroom, and then it's like basically a bunch of studio apartments. It's just a 1-room apartment upstairs when they first move into the upstairs apartment. In 1938, though, they move into in 1938 they move into the ground floor, which is very important for his crimes later on. This is the bigger apartment, and they're also only renting. It's not like they own this place, because he also likes to act like he's the owner, but he is not. He's just renting. It's like anybody and the other tenants. But the ground floor apartment is slightly bigger, so they have a bedroom as well as the living room kitchen area, and it's closer to the washroom and has access to the yard. And now that he's there, he makes sure that he's the only one that can use the yard for burying his bodies. So lovely. And since there's an outdoor washroom, it's kind of run down anyway, people don't question the smell later on. The other lovely upside to this is, one moment, I had some extra, so I am going to use my regular ones as well. They also live next door or on same block as the lovely train tracks. So when it would go by, it would shake the house. Like the apartment from 7, but worse. And much more murder. Less corpse mutilation. You can say that. No boxes with heads in them, but a lot more horrible stuff. But he didn't chop up any bodies. There we go. In World War II, he applied to be a reserve war police officer, and even though he had a criminal record, it's not like they really did a background check, and they were so short on people, they probably wouldn't have cared anyway. He had background in the military and training, so they probably, even if they did see his background, they probably at that time wouldn't have cared. They just need somebody. They needed bodies. Isn't that lovely? And this uniform was another way of him getting power. It felt good for him. This is also where he would lie later and say that this is where he got medical training. I mean, they probably just taught him, if that, taught him how to do CPR. But nothing like he claims to be able to do. Treat people's breathing problems with cough treatments, and that he's able to do abortions because he was trained as a reserve cop. Yeah, okay. Get out of here, fool. And like, he had these giant glasses, so I don't even know if I trust him to be able to see what he was doing, let alone actually know what he was doing. But even though he's married back with his wife, it's not like he's faithful. He continues to see sex workers. He also starts up an affair with a woman named Gladys Jones, whose husband was in the military. He was a soldier in the military, and they saw each other until mid-1943 when the husband came home and beat his ass. And that's right around the time where he started committing his first murders. His murders spread out between 1943 and 1953. There would usually be some kind of strangling. He would render them unconscious with his cough treatment or medical treatment, where it was just a hose that he would put in a like a glass container, and it would go all the way to like the gas stove, and he said it was mixing with stuff, so that he would just like knock them out with carbon monoxide poisoning and then strangle them. because he didn't have enough strength to actually strangle them. And then he would have sex with them as they were dying or after they were dead, even though he would later say he did not commit necrophilia. They were dead or dying as he had sex with them and as he murdered them. As he raped them, they were either dead or dying. So he was whether he liked it or not, whether he wanted to admit it or not, he was a necrophiliac. Committed necrophilia. Horrible person. And the way he would get people or get women to come back with him is he would, like I said, he would say, oh, I can perform an abortion for you, or you have a cough that's making you feel ill, come back with me, I'll give you a treatment, you'll feel better. I was trained in medical terminology and medical treatments during the war. I have a medical book. Look, see, I can do things. No, fool, you can't. Go away. You can't even speak above a whisper. How am I supposed to believe you? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What? What is it that you can do? Oh, nothing? Okay, you can go now. Bye. What a fool. For such a derpy guy, he does a lot of damage. So like I said, after his military time, he would lure women in with either medical treatment or promises of an abortion, and then he would kill them. His first murder that he admitted to is Ruth Forrest. She was 21 years old on August 24th, 1943. She was a sex worker and he claimed that he was soliciting clients at a snack bar in Ladbroke Grove, and according to his statements, I lost my place in my notes. Yeah, according to his own statements, he invited her home to engage in sex while his wife was visiting relatives. And afterward, this was probably the most impulsive one. Of course, it's probably the one that felt the best. He strangled her on his bed with a length of rope, and initially put her body beneath the floorboards of his living room, and then buried it in the backyard the following evening. He then found new employment as a clerk at Action Radio Factory. That's who I want working at the news radio station. There he met his second victim, colleague Muriel Amelia Eddy, and on the 7th of October 1944 he invited, excuse me doggy, Eddy back to his flat with the promise that he had concocted a special mixture that could cure her bronchitis. Eddy was to inhale the mixture from a jar with a tube inserted on the top, and the mixture in fact was Friar balsam, which Christie used to disguise the smell of domestic gas. Once Eddy was seated, breathing the mixture from the tube with her back turned, Christie inserted a second tube into the jar connected to the gas tap. As Eddy continued breathing, she inhaled the domestic gas and was soon rendered unconscious. And in the 1940s, domestic gas also had coal gas, which had the carbon monoxide in it, containing content of 15%. And then he raped and strangled her while she died. He strangled her and raped her as she was dying, and then buried her in the backyard as well. Lovely human being. Okay, so we got our first one done. Got a little bit extras. So we've got our Ocean Breathe, and we got one here as well. So these are gonna have to, they'll sit for 24 hours, and then I will wrap them, and then they will be ready to soothe your shower. Soothe you and steam up your shower in a healthy way and not a terrible gas way. All right, I'm gonna set those aside and we'll do the next one. So now that you can breathe, you can get on with your day. So we're gonna do the sunny mood one. And because it's a sunny mood, it's gonna be yellow. Beautiful. Okay, so this is a really interesting part of this case. It's part of the reason why it's so well known in the UK and really influential is because of this part of the case right here. The Beryl and Geraldine Evans case. Timothy Evans as well. What are you doing over there? They become his victims as well. And Timothy Evans becomes a victim by proxy, I guess you could call it. Because his actions get him killed as well. But he doesn't actually murder him. Whew. It's toasty in here. So in Easter of 1948, Timothy Evans and his wife Beryl move into the upstairs apartment of Rilligton Place. And from reading and research, they are not very, sorry, I was counting at the same time. They're not that well educated. Timothy Evans can't even read or write. There we go. He can't even, yeah, he can't read or write, and they're a little bit, hey, what's happening over there? Excuse me, one moment. The animals have lost control. I'm back. Rounded up the crazy animals. Alright. It is it's a bit of a circus here sometimes, but we try. Like I said, okay, so he had a very low IQ. They both, it seemed like he had a slightly lower IQ, or at least was very easily manipulated than Beryl was, but they were both very susceptible to Reginald's coaxing and had trouble making a living and had issues from the beginning. So when they moved in, they weren't, this is something that the movie changes, but they weren't pregnant. Well, I guess they could have been pregnant. Depends on if Easter that year was in April or March. or just about pregnant. Beryl gives birth to their first baby in October. Baby's name is Geraldine. And when they moved in, he kind of takes over. It kind of shows this in the movie too, but it shows like how he doesn't let them have access to the yard, of course, because he doesn't want anybody to discover that his body's buried. You know, that's his fertilizer. That's a terrible joke, but terrible. But he doesn't want anybody to discover what he's done. So he gets like this injunction. I think he does this later, but he gets this injunction where it's like he is the only one to have access to it because it's attached to his apartment, not anybody else's. Like, okay, you don't even own this place. How do you get to have the say of what's going on? But it's a different time, different country, different laws, different rules. He also gives them, like, they can't use the bathroom after 10 o'clock at night, and they have to be quiet or whatever, and it's very strange. Like, how do you make the house rules? I mean, I know you've been there longer, but you're both just renting. So it's another way for him to get his power rocks off. So in October, they give birth to Geraldine. And they're already having money problems. He can't really keep a job. He lies a lot about all this money that he has. She doesn't have a job. She's at home with the baby. And they're having problems already. They argue and fight a lot. It is, I mean, the testimony that they fight a lot, the amount that they fight is given from Ethel and Reginald, but is the one that ends up actually doing the murder, so who's to say how much was him saying that and how like really happened. I know there are other witnesses of them arguing. They were a very young couple as well, so that's gonna happen. But Timothy does things that are wrong, like he does lie a lot, and it's depicted like in the movie, like even his mom is like, stop lying. That doesn't mean he deserves what happens. I apologize. There we go. So they have the baby, and then of course, as married couples do, they continue to have sex, and they get pregnant again. Not using any protection or anything. They end up getting pregnant a second time, and it's kind of depicted both of them, mostly Beryl, but we don't really know for sure. Didn't want another baby. They couldn't afford it. They were already stressed out enough as it is. They didn't want another baby. So they had been arguing a lot. Beryl, it was said that Beryl had gotten some pills and was trying to abort the baby herself. And then at some point, he goes to her, she goes to him. It's not really quite clear what actually happened, but he kind of lures her in, saying, I was trained. I know how to do an abortion. I can help take care of it. So eventually she goes to him for the abortion. But of course it really isn't an abortion, and she dies. Now he tells Timothy that she died during the procedure, and if he goes to the police, he'll be at fault too because he knew about it, and she also took pills beforehand, so that's what actually kills her, not his procedure. So if you help me hide the body, nothing will happen. Like, we'll just like mutually assured destruction kind of thing. Like, it'll be okay. We won't tell the cops, because if we tell the cops, we'll both be liable, we'll both get in trouble. So you just help me hide the body. Or that's what they do in the movies. Like, help me hide it, and then won't say anything. And you won't get in trouble. But the question was, what do we do with Geraldine? And it's kind of hard. From Timothy's confession, we don't really know exactly what happens, but the says later it's because Reginald told him that there was a family that wasn't able to have children, so they'll take Geraldine, keep her safe until they're done hiding the body, and then they'll get it back, so you don't have to worry about it. So of course he's upset that his wife is dead. He doesn't want to get in trouble, so he says okay. So he gives Reginald Reggie No Dick Geraldine, and he goes to visit his family and says that he's on vacation, so that way they can set up an alibi. When he comes back, oh, she just left me, she took the baby, blah blah blah. He comes back. Of course, he gets a guilty conscience. He says, I can't find my wife. We put her in the sewer, and he said, it's my fault. I killed her. He originally confesses, this is what gets him in trouble, is that he does originally confess. He said, I put her in the sewer. They look in the sewer, she's not there. He had buried her. Well, he had put her in the wash house. So they do a search of the house again. They don't find her. Then they do actual thorough search, and they finally find her, and they find the baby, and they find that she was pregnant. There's a fetus. They tell him that the baby, Geraldine, is with the body, and he didn't know that. And so that's the first time he found out that his wife and baby were dead. And so he's freaking out. And then he starts to recant his confession. He said, no, it wasn't me. I wasn't the one who did it. Christie's the one who did it. He gave her an abortion, and he killed her. But by that time, he had already confessed. And it's said that it's pretty well known that they kind of coaxed the confession out of him and coerced it, because after he had originally confessed, he recanted, and then the police got a hold of him, and they talked another confession out of him. But the words that are used in his confession are much more knowledgeable and educated than the way he actually spoke, and he couldn't read it anyway to go over it. He could sign his name, but he couldn't read it to make sure that was actually his words, so they kind of just like easily pinned it on him. I mean, they weren't thinking there would be a serial killer in that house. Like, who we all know it was the husband, right? It's always the husband, it's always the wife. But who? But not this time. And if they had done their actual job, they would have found out that there was actually an actual killer there, and they would have stopped him before he hurt 4 more people. 5 if you include Timothy. And the problem also, and this gets me too. So if they had actually done this, a real thorough search, they would have seen that there was a femur bone propping up the gate to the yard. And this is a very small yard. Very, very small yard. It's 16 feet by 14 feet. And there's a femur bone holding up the door to the yard. And there's also 2 bodies buried in the yard. So after they had found that body, they should have like dug everything up and like, we're looking for more now. And if you looked around and says femur bone, okay, yeah, we need to search. We need to check this out, guys. Come on, let's do an investigation. In fact, like the next day, his dog dug up. Oh, that's funny. It's like squishy. His dog, there we go, dug up the head to one of the other women, and he disposed of it in an abandoned house the next day. So if they had really done their due diligence, their real investigation, they would have stopped him before. So Timothy goes to trial. They have this confession, and they have Christie's testimony and Ethel's testimony. It's believed that Reginald Christie told Ethel what to say, kind of coached her testimony so that he is the one, that Timothy looks like the one that's guilty, but we don't know that for sure. But it comes out in the trial that he has a criminal background, and he has a background in violence as well. But even with that, he is a more upstanding person in society and a more educated, and he's decorated war veteran. So they take his word over Timothy's, and Timothy is convicted of the death of Geraldine. At that time, he could only go to trial for one person at a time. So they did the death of the baby, because it was believed that the death of, even though they believed that he killed her or that she died during the abortion, so they believed that Beryl probably died during the abortion, so it was more of an accident. They believed that they could get more of a conviction for the baby, so they tried and convicted him for the murder of Geraldine. And it's very quick, maybe a couple months between it, and he's hanged for that murder. And that this will come back at the end. But after the trial, his background that he had hid of all his criminal activity comes out. When that comes out, he gets fired from the other job, because he's like, you can't work at, like, I think he's at the radio station, another postal office job at the time. Like, you can't work there, so he gets fired, and which is kind of probably his a stressor for him to start killing again and like really going for it, because the next parts it goes a lot faster. The other ones are a lot more spread out. So after even though he gets this rage in him, he kind of like lays low because he doesn't want any more heat on him. But in December of 1952, he strangles his wife Ethel in their bed, and they're not really sure why. It's probably she knew too much, got sick of him having an affair with sex workers, threatened to tell what actually happened. So those are the theories of what happened in their relationship, and that finally caused him to murder her. but it wasn't like it wasn't like a sudden thing though. He kind of built up to it. He told everybody that she was getting ready to visit her family. Then he killed her. Then he drained her bank account and sold all her things and took the money and went with it. So now that he doesn't have a job anymore, she's gonna fund his murder spree. So from January to March, he kills his last 3 victims. We have Kathleen Moloney, Rita Nelson, and Hectorina McLennan. I guess it's Maloney. Terrible. I know I have a weird, hard to pronounce name myself, so you think I would be better at pronouncing names, but because I don't really care how my name is pronounced, I'm like, oh, maybe it's this way, and I seem to always make it more complicated on myself anyway. So Maloney was a sex worker in the Ladbroke Grove area, and he lured her back to 10 Rillington Place and strangled her, subdued her, strangled her, and raped her. Nelson was from Belfast, and she was visiting her sister in Ladbroke Grove when she met Christie, and she was 6 months pregnant at the time of her murder. So it was more that he lured her in the hopes that she could get an abortion from him. Again, was knocked out and then strangled and raped. And then McLennan was living in London with her boyfriend Alex Baker, and they met in a cafe, and all 3 of them met several times in hopes, because they were going to rent the apartment where the Evans lived, and they met 3 or 4 times. Then Christie let McLennan he let them stay there for a while. And then on an occasion, Christie met McLennan on her own and then persuaded to come back to the flat, and that's where he murdered her. He later convinced Baker, who came to Rillington Place looking for her, that he hadn't seen her. And Christie kept up the facade for several days, meeting him regularly to see if there was any news. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna totally gaslight you, totally murdered your girlfriend and everything, but yeah, I haven't seen her. Dick. For such a dick. For Reggie, no dick. Certainly is a dick. So with these last murders, he used his method, again, like I said, with the rubber tube connected to the gas pipe. And then, which he kept closed with a bulldog clip, which I didn't know it's just a chip clip, that kind of thing. But I just thought that was a funny name for it. The Brabin report pointed out that Christie's explanation of his gassing technique was not satisfactory, because he would have to overpower by the gases. He would have been overpowered by the gas as well. Nevertheless, he established that all 3 victims had been exposed to carbon monoxide. So like they weren't completely knocked out, but they were less. They were subdued to the point where he was able to attack them without them being able to fight back. Because I don't think he had very much strength at that point anyway, so they might have been able to fight him off if they hadn't been subdued. Like I said, they labeled him later as a necrophiliac, but he said he wasn't, but I don't care what he says, because he's horrible. So he can deny it all he wants, but that's what he did. Trying to make his crimes less horrible by saying that's not what he did, but can't lie with the science. So he's not a very good. He always gets caught. I mean, he got caught so many times back in the early 30s. So it's not to say that he was really, I don't think he really thought he was going to get away with it for very long. I don't know why he leaves. He doesn't really explain why he decides to leave. I guess he was running out of room in the house. It's not like, it's not a very big house, and there's not very much yard, so it's probably out of room by that point. So he moves out of 10 Rillington Place on March 20th, 1953. He had illegally sublet to a couple. The landlord visited that same evening and found a couple there instead, not Christie, and they had to leave the next morning. And then since there wasn't anybody else there, so he gave himself a head start by giving them access to the house. And maybe they would think it was the other tenants, but come on, in one night, I'm sure he was hoping that they would be there for longer. So the landlord allowed the tenant on the top floor, Burstford Brown, to use the Christie's kitchen. I guess there was something wrong with his. He was also both Ethel and them both had issues. I believe that they were I think they were, I apologize, the couple don't get murdered, but they were pretty racist to the couple that moved in, because I believe they were a black couple that moved in, I think so. And they would complain about them to the cops and stuff, so they were pretty racist as well. But he goes to a doctor before one of the trials, I apologize, I'll get there when we get to the movie, but his doctor is of Indian descent, and he complains to his doctor about his neighbors. It's like, are you that oblivious? Like, what is wrong with you? But yeah, so on top of being a murderer, they're also racist. So, awesome people to be around. And if you don't realize that's sarcasm. Not good people. He was not a good person. And I know he complained about them. I don't know for sure if Ethel had the issue. It seems to be portrayed so in the movie that she says some not politically correct things to an officer. Like, they complain about the food that they make being like too smelly, like too much spices when they cook. But I don't know if she did that in real life too. I just know that he had issues with them. Like, that's when he gets some kind of injunction to make sure that they can't use the yard, like legally can't use the yard. I mean, that's also because he doesn't want people to find the bodies, but I think it was also because he didn't want to interact with them. But yeah, so the landlord lets them go use the kitchen. And as he's using the kitchen, I believe it's like, well, it kind of smells in here, it's kind of gross. And he pulls back the wallpaper, and he finds the bodies of the 3 sex workers. And that's when they start searching for Christie. And he didn't really try to assume a new identity. He did, like, he wore a hat. He slept. He booked a room for 7 nights under his real name. So it wasn't like he wasn't trying to be. He was trying to not be caught, but it wasn't like it was really helping. And He did sleep at a couple, he just wandered around. He stayed there, he stayed there for 4 nights. They left on March 24th, and then when he heard that they were actually looking for him, that's when he started wandering around London, and he would stay up all day in cafes, and then he would sleep in the cinemas, or he would just kind of just wander around. He didn't really stay anywhere, so it's not like he expected to have much freedom left. No, I don't know where he thought he was going to go. This is part of where he gets caught. He pawns his watch for 10 shillings on the morning of March 31st. And then he was arrested. They notified the police. And he was arrested on Putney Bridge after being challenged about his identity. And when he was arrested, they took his belongings. He had his wallet with his ID, his marriage certificate, his ration book, a union card, and then he also had a newspaper clipping of the Timothy Evans case, which is weird. Oh, I also forgot one thing about that case too, is when Timothy Evans got found guilty, he burst into tears. Not Timothy, of course Timothy Evans was crying because he didn't do it. John Reginal Christie burst into tears, whether or not it was because he believed he was he got away with it, or I don't think he really felt bad, but he has weird actions, so maybe it was some kind of psychological disorder, so maybe that's it. But I just thought that was a really odd tidbit that he just started crying. But there we go. Kind of breaking up here. Okay. So he's placed under arrest, and he only admitted to the murders of the women that they found in the alcove originally, and his wife during the questioning. When they found the skeletons, he did confess to those as well, and then he confessed to the murder of Burl Evans, and which Timothy Evans had originally been charged with the death for, during the investigation of 1949. Although he still denied the murder of Geraldine, because if he had confessed to that in his prison time, would have been a lot worse, because people who hurt children do not do well in prison for very long. So that might have been one of the reasons he didn't want to confess to that. But they were pretty sure. There was an orderly in the hospital said that he had confessed to the murder of the baby as well, but he never officially confessed. Then he finally, so on June 5th, 1953, he confessed to the murders of the Muriel Eddy, Ruth First, which helped the police identify the skeletons. And then an odd thing that they did find was a weird trophy that he had, which was the pubic hair of 4 women that they found in his flat in a container, and it didn't match anybody. He originally said it was his wife's and one of the women, but it didn't really match anybody, and it didn't match any of the bodies that they found. You couldn't tell if it matched any of the skeletons, but because it didn't match the women that they found in the home that were still intact, they have theories that he killed other women as well, or had a weird collection, maybe he took it from the sex workers that he didn't kill. He just had like this weird collection that he wanted. So they're not entirely sure. It was just a weird trophy that he had. Again, they can only be tried for one murder. So they chose to try him for Ethel's murder because is one he confessed to, and it is his wife. So there's a easier way to prove motive there. So they figured they could get a better conviction on that. The trial began in June 22nd, 1953 in the same court which Evans had been tried there, and Christie tried to plead insanity, and his defense attorney was like trying to get him to confess to as many as possible so that they could show how crazy he was, but it didn't take. Claimed to have poor memory of the events. He didn't know what he had done. Dr. Matheson's at HM prison in Brixton evaluated him and was called by a witness for the prosecution, and he testified that he had a hysterical personality but was not insane. So he knew damn well what he was doing was wrong, but he didn't care. So he's definitely had some kind of personality disorder, but was not crazy enough to be labeled insane and get off on insanity. So the jury rejected this plea as well, and after only deliberating for 85 minutes, he was found guilty. And in June 29th, 1953, he announced that he would not be appealing his conviction, and he was hanged July 1953 at 9 a.m. July 15th, 1953 in HM prison in Pentonville. His executioner was Albert Pierpoint, which was the same executioner who had hanged Evans. And this is I don't know, that's a little bit of irony, I guess, but sweet justice was that he got to hang him as well. But also he said his last words were, "My nose itches," and the executioner said, it won't itch for long, or it won't bother you for long. So down you go. After the execution, the body was buried in precincts of the prison. So his victims are as follows: Ruth Forrest, 21st August 21, August 24th, 1943. Merrill Eddy, 31, October 7th, 1944. Beryl Evans, 20 years old, November 8th, 1949. Most likely Geraldine Evans was 13 months old. Ethel Christie, 54, December 14th, 1952. Rita Nelson, 25, January 19th, 1953. Kathleen Maloney, 26, February 1953. They don't have the exact date. And Hectorina McLennan, 26 years old, March 6, 1953. And now we get back to the significance of the Timothy Evans case. It was that because this was after his conviction, his sister and sister-in-law, his family started going to the courts and saying, hey, look, there's reasonable doubt here that, that he didn't kill the baby. Like, he confessed to killing Beryl. He confessed to all these other women. He was in the house. Timothy was innocent. So they started pleading. Whew, thirsty. Taking up appeals to the House of Commons. And they did find out, they were satisfied with the reasonable doubt. He was given a posthumous pardon. as he had been trying to execute it for the daughter. But they didn't give him, he's still technically legally guilty. They just gave him a pardon, and they were able to exhume the body and bury him in a private cemetery. So there's still, and they were given a ex gratia payments of compensation for the miscarriage of justice of the trial, but he hasn't been granted a new trial, and he hasn't been he's been pardoned, but he hasn't been what's the word, they didn't take back the conviction, so he's technically still legally guilty, although he's been pardoned, and the family's getting money payments for the miscarriage of justice, that like he shouldn't have been found guilty in the first place. But because of that, because of this case, and because of that they didn't do a proper investigation, it's one of the cases that led to the UK abolishing the death penalty. So that's one of the reasons why this case is so this serial killer and this case is important to the history of the UK. So let's get into the films. Alright, so we finished our Sunny Time ones. So they, like I said, these have to, nice easy craft today. These have to wait for 24 hours before I can wrap them. So let's get into the films. Like I said, I wanted to do the crimes first, because for me to go over the films, you have to kind of know about what actually happened in the actual crime. It's not like it was loosely based, so I can go over like the plot points of the movie first. No, this is it. We know. Alrighty, so the first one is 1971, so not too much. I could like 20 years after. Is 10 Rillington Place. It was like I said, it was born in not born. It was came out in 1971, directed by Richard Fletcher. Writers Clive Exton and Ludwig Kennedy is the one who wrote the book 10 Rillington Place, and it stars Richard Attenborough, Jodie Gleason, and John Hurt. And my goodness, I know this movie was a long time ago, but I really didn't recognize them. I know Richard Attenborough, who plays Christie, is the grandpa, the scientist from Jurassic Park, and the makeup and the glasses that they use on him, like I know it. I see him as that. He's done many other things, but I love that movie, so it's like, oh, it's grandpa. It's the grandpa, it's the scientist from Jurassic Park, so I see that, but goodness, I knew it was him watching it the first time, but the glasses that they have, he's these giant magnifying glasses and a really big forehead, and it didn't look like him at all. It didn't even sound like him. He changed his pitch a lot, so you could not tell. And the man who plays John Hurt is Timothy Evans, which again I didn't recognize either the first time I watched it, before I went to IMDb and did some like Googling. IMDb used to be my favorite website. I mean, I still love it. I'll like watch a movie and just go straight to trivia and goofs and try to just like learn about the movie as much as possible. They took it off because people were mean to each other. They used to have a message board thing where people could discuss the films themselves, which I found, I didn't like the drama. There was drama. I never commented, but I always went there. I was like, does anybody else feel this way? Like I'd have a theory about the movie or a theory about something, and I would go there to see if anybody else did. I'm not like a poster of that kind of things, but I was just curious if any, and I'd feel validated if somebody else felt that way. Not that I would post anything. I don't have time for that. But I'll sit there and read it. It was my scrolling before there was scrolling. I guess there was scrolling, but I preferred to read about the films first. Okay. So the guy again, John Hurt, who plays Timothy Evans, is a doctor from Doctor Who. But again, when I watched it the second time, I could see it, but the first time I didn't recognize it. And it's also as V from V for Vendetta. No, he's not V from V for Vendetta. He plays one of the bad guys in V for Vendetta. Sorry. Correct? Yes. I could have mistaken that. He's not V, duh. But he's in it. Now I'm doubting myself. One moment. Give me. Huh. That's funny. He was in 1984 too, which is a very similar V for Vendetta kind of style movie. La, da, 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 da. That's gonna bug me. Oh, and he was in Merlin as well. He's the voice of the dragon. Adam Sutler. Yeah, I want to say he's like yeah. He's a bad guy. But for some reason my brain wrote the wrong thing in my notes. And I think it's kind of funny. I don't know how many people out there watched Mad About You in reruns, or I think she was in the reboot too. I can't remember now, but the woman who plays Beryl Evans is Judy Geeson. And if you watched Mad About You, she's in plenty of things, but the thing I recognize her from is she is their crazy British neighbor from The Ones That Don't Like Them in Mad About You. And I was watching reruns of Mad About You at the time of researching this, and so I went to watch the movie, I'm like, oh, that's her! It's very funny. Of course, she's a lot younger, and I didn't recognize her at first, but yeah. So something that's different, again, they do a good job of sticking to the facts in the film, but something that is a little bit different is when they move in, they already have the baby. They only have, I think it's only like 90-minute movies, so they only have a very limited amount of time that they have to tell this story, so they got to condense a lot of the facts. So they already have the baby, and they kind of make him seem a little bit more well-to-do when they first move in than I think he probably was, although they do show that he can't read, and he does lie about having more jobs than he actually has, or more money than he actually has, but they speed that along, and they argue and fight, and there's a lot of fabricating stories, and she shows that she doesn't want to have another baby, and it shows that she goes to the Christie for the abortion, and again, it like I said, it goes pretty much down the line of what happens pretty quickly. Keeps it they do a good job of keeping the storyline from changing too much. He gives off creepy vibes right away when she moves in. He offers Beryl tea and says that he was in the police force during the war, and that he has knowledge of medical procedures, just to put that in her mind, just in case, maybe she'll need something. Need a footrest back here. Maybe she'll need something. Maybe, or maybe I can just lure her away and kill her, which he does. So he just kind of plants that seed. So when she gets pregnant again, she does go to him. And it goes down the line. She dies. Timothy confesses. They go to trial. Timothy is convicted. And they do the scene where he starts crying. That's why I wanted to remember to tell you guys that, because they do the scene where he just starts bawling, because it's such a weird character trait that I'm sure they wanted to put that into the film because it's just so strange. And it does show they took the theory that Christie knew more, and Ethel knew more about what Christie was doing after the conviction. She moves into the front room, and that she starts to feel guilty about what she knows. So that shows Like that theory of that, like she knew too much, she's mad at him, and that's why he kills her. This movie is more centered around the Timothy Evans, Beryl Geraldine case of the story. Yes, they show him taking women, the sex workers and women, for procedures and kills them. Especially, they do a little bit before, but it's like the two victims before the Timothy Evans case, but it's mostly about the Timothy Evans case, the Beryl and Geraldine murders as well. Like all that, this movie mostly focuses around that, because after that conviction and he's hanged, it's like almost a montage of the rest of the murders. She goes to sleep in the living room. All of a sudden, he's killing her and burying her in the floorboards. Then he brings each one of the girls back to the apartment. Then he shows him killing them, not in like a super gruesome way, but it's just like either he's putting them in the floorboards, or he's putting them in the walls, or he's burying them. Like it's not a montage exactly, but it's very quick. And then it shows him running away. It shows people moving in and finding the body, or the neighbors finding the body. There is a scene about them not like being racist, for not liking their neighbors because they're racist. There is a little bit of that in it. And I scrolled in the wrong part. I scrolled the wrong way. And then he's caught. They show him a little bit. They show him at like a halfway house or a homeless shelter talking to people. Not exactly about what he did, but just kind of like of his heydays. Like, I used to know medical things. Like, okay, dude, just, we're all in a homeless shelter together. You're not better than anybody else. But kind of like lifting himself up, like, I have more power, I'm better than you, even though we're all here together. He gets caught. They show him getting caught, and then they just cut to on-screen text about him, his trial, his conviction, and the pardon of Timothy Evans, and them abolishing the death penalty in the UK. And that's the end of the movie. Then the mini-series just gets to go in a little bit more detail. It's 3 episodes. Each of them are like 90 minutes. The episodes are titled Ethel, Timothy, and Christie. Yes. So the first episode is Ethel. It focuses more on his relationship with Ethel. It starts with them getting back together after during his last stint in jail. He convinces her to come back, move back in with him at Rilligton Place. He's already living there at the time. He shows her this place, the garden where they can grow their own food, and it's like a really shitty garden. I mean, I'm sure a good green thumb could do some, they need to stay. I'm sure a good gardener could do some good work with it. My mom could definitely do some good work with it. I could try. I could want to, but I would get distracted. I'd get scared from bees and run away. But I definitely like to garden. I could probably try to do some things with it. I definitely wouldn't bury bodies in the yard. Do better than he did. But he lures her back in. They start. It shows him as the police officer. It shows him getting the shit beat out of him for having an affair, although he doesn't tell his wife that. There is a little bit of timeline mixing, but sorry, I'm mixing stuff up. But so it goes over that. Then they do they do build the story that she knows more than she's letting on. She follows him to the pub and sees him leaving with a sex worker. They were like going on a date, and all the sex workers are yelling to him because they're like, oh yeah, come over here, because they know that he's a customer, and she pretends not to have it bother her. She pretends to be like, oh yeah, it's nothing, but it's really something. There's nights where he's killing the first 2 victims, and she wakes up to like him digging in the garden or pulling up the floorboards, and she pretends she doesn't see anything. They don't show her seeing anything, but she kind of has more knowledge than she is letting on. That this film, but it also shows how he continues to lure in like the love. I think they call it like love bombing. Like he'll get her presents, get her expensive chocolate during times where there's rations, or he'll get a necklace. So like he continues to reel her in, so she has doubts, and then he gives her a present. So they have like a weird, a strained relationship. The first episode ends as I forgot to tell you who's in it, and this is another reason why I want to watch it. The first episode ends when Timothy Evans and Beryl Evans move in, and so in this one, it stars Tim Roth as Christie, Samantha Morton as Ethel, Jodie Comer as Beryl, and Nico Miralejo as Timothy. And I don't really know who he is, but the first 3 I do know. And holy crap, Tim Roth does not look like himself at all. They age him quite a bit. I mean, he is old. He's not, maybe he is as old as Christie was at that time, but I don't think so. And they like put a ball cap on him, and the magnifying glasses, and the way he walks is like hunched. It's like a menacing old professor, like looking over your papers, like disapprovingly. Like, why are you being disapprovingly, bitch? Like, terrible. But and he has this like very low, whispering, condescending voice, and the entire time I'm watching it, just like cringing in my seat, like, I hate you so much. And I love Samantha Morton. She plays Ethel. If you've ever seen the movie Libertine, she plays Elizabeth Barry. I love the film, and I love her in it, so I was really excited to see her. And Jodie Comer from Killing Eve, which another amazing actress. She does a really good job in this. She plays Beryl Evans. So back to that episode, and so this episode goes over pretty much the second episode and the older movie are very parallel, except for like the murder montage in the movie. It's the second episode pretty much goes over the Timothy Evans case. They just get to go in a little bit more detail of Timothy and Beryl's life, and they show how much he lies about all the jobs he has, and how much money he has, and how connected his family is. But then he'll go to his mom. I did like his mom in this. He'll go to his mom and ask for stuff, and the mom works really hard. She works in a factory, and he's like, you only come around when you need something. And like, stop telling all these lies, stop, and it's like, I give her 10, and you can tell her, I give her 10 pounds a week, and she spends it, and it's all her fault. And she goes, stop bad mouthing your wife. She's had a hard life as is. She's no education, no mother. She's had it hard enough. You go get a job. You having a problem? You go get a job. Stop lying about it. Like, whew, I like you. You could stay. But of course, even when it comes down to when he gets convicted, she's right by her. It's like, she knows that even though he lied and didn't get a job, that he's not a murderer. So she does stand up for him and is on his side in that way, but definitely like tries to like put him in his place when he needs to be put in his place. So I hope that was true and not just fictionalized, dramatized conversation. I hope that that's kind of how she was, because I really liked that scene. And so that ends with his execution. the third episode is Christie, it's called Christie, and that is from the execution of Timothy Evans, to his execution. It follows the murder of Ethel, and the last 3 murders, and it is a bit montagey, but it is not as a quick montage as the movie. They're able to go in a little bit more detail with it. We don't know that much details about the women that he killed, so they do it a little bit quicker. They know a lot about the Beryl, Geraldine, Timothy Evans part, but they don't know as much about that. So they go through that and his escape. They show the family upstairs finding the bodies, and they are horrified, of course. And it's not super graphic, in case you're worried about that. There's not a lot of blood shown, but yeah, they go through all of that. And they show him getting caught. They show him go through his trial, and then he gets executed. And they do it in more of a serious way for the execution. I really wanted them to put my nose itches. Well, it won't bother you for long, but they made it more of a somber note at the end of it, because they had the music swelling and out. And they did the on-screen text about Timothy Evans and the UK getting rid of the death penalty and him getting a pardon. So they go through that. So as far as sticking to the facts, both were really good about it. The miniseries is able to go into a little bit more detail than the film. And the film mostly, like I said, focuses on the Timothy Evans case. But they're both, I thought, were very well done and very interesting to watch. And I liked going over these because this is a UK serial killer, and we don't always know as much about them. Besides, Jack the Ripper, I know there's a lot more too. So, and the Ripper, the Yorkshire Ripper, that we probably all watched the documentary on Netflix. But there is more out there, unfortunately, and that's why we all want to sit and watch all these documentaries on Netflix. But yeah, he was, and it's always crazy to me when I read these executions, the dates, the conviction to the execution, since nowadays it takes years and years and appeals before they actually finally, if at all, actually get to the death penalty. So it's kind of crazy to it was only a month. And he did give up his appeals, but it was only a month. Goodness, that's really quick. Shit. They don't fuck around. But this was a interesting case to research, and it was definitely an interesting case film to watch as well, and I suggest you watch them as well. Both are on Prime. No, 10 Rillington Place is Prime. Rillington Place itself is on AMC Plus, so if you have that, you can watch it, or you can get free trial and then watch it and then cancel it. That new show, Kevin Could Go Fuck Himself, is on AMC Plus, so if you need a reason to get another subscription to something, there you go. I wanted to tell you who directed it, but they only have the stars. Boo! Hold on, I get it. I hate when they update. Oh, here we go. They update things. They make me click extra stuff. The series is directed by Craig Viveros, written by Tracy Malone and Ed Whitmer. There we go. Give credit where credit is due. They did a very good job. And we finished our craft for the day as well. So we have Breathe shower steamers in blue, and we have Sunny Mood, because we all need a mood lifter these days, in yellow. I'm not a big yellow person, so it's nice to actually, I don't usually use yellow in my crafts. I love the color red for the passion. Love red. Red is one of my favorite colors. I'll use blues and purples and greens, sometimes greens, but I don't use a lot of orange and yellow, so it's nice to find a craft that I can use those colors for. But if your favorite color is yellow, I'll be happy to make you a craft with all yellow stuff. I'll make a tumbler for you with all yellows, all different yellows. But that brings our crafts and our crimes to a close today. And like I say, no crimes were committed in the making of these crafts, except for the crime of my comedy. Next time we will be doing another old one. I'm a TCM girl. I don't know, person. I love Turner Classic Movies. Grew up on them. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to get into acting in the first place. So I'm sticking, and the older cases are a little easier to do because there's been more time in between, so you can discuss it without it being so recent. Although I will be doing a more recent case in a couple of videos. But we'll be doing Anatomy of a Murder with Jimmy Stewart, who is one of my loves. Their Widows on one of my all-time favorite movies, so it'll be fun to watch that. And I didn't write that down, but we're doing the story behind Anatomy of a Murder and Anatomy of a Murder the film, which is also based on a book. And I think we'll be doing body butters, or we'll see. I haven't decided on what the craft will be yet. It's a surprise, but we'll definitely be talking about Anatomy of a Murder. And as always, if you enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button so you know when the next video comes out. I upload. This is trial and error for me, so I'm in the process of getting these up. My goal is to get them up every Monday, a new episode every Monday. So on Mondays, when Mondays are hard, at least you have some crafts and crime to watch. You can follow the crafts and all the crimes and order things through Instagram, on my website, and Facebook are From the Heart Personalized Gifts, and you can so those links will be below, and you'll see I'll have pictures of the crafts and pictures of the crimes as well, posted on Instagram. So that concludes today, and I will see you next time. Have a good night or good morning, depending on what time you watch it.